You are listening to the Spiritual Warrior Coach with Barbara Savin, the podcast for discovering how powerful your wisdom, compassion, and courage is. Get ready to join Barbara and her guests as they explore and offer you advice on how to reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. And now, here's the host of the show, Barbara Savin.
Thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Savin, and I am here to help you reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. I'm a certified clinical and medical hypnotherapist, Reiki master and teacher, energy healing specialist, life coach, and best-selling author of Gentle Energy Touch, The Beginner's Guide to Hands-on Healing. You know, I have been helping my clients for over 35 years, and the older I get, the more wisdom seems to come through. So isn't it time that you believe in yourself? You know, your mind is going to provide you with your greatest challenges in life because it's so very, very powerful. So let's use that mind for positive thinking, creating harmony, balance, peace, love, happiness, and anything else that your heart desires, because one day the world will tap you on your shoulder and say, this is your time to shine. And speaking about shining, I'm going to bring on my guest right now. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Oh my gosh. It's so good to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. Same here. It's a beautiful day here in California. So every day is a beautiful day. So let me tell my listeners a little bit about you. Xandra Hawes, right? Or
Xandra Hawes. Yeah.
Xandra Hawes. Okay. Xandra Hawes is a psychotherapist and psychic medium on a mission to help you connect with your highest self. She is the creator of Soul Essence Wellness Center, an online energy medicine school where she helps empaths tap into their intuition, develop a deeper sense of embodied trust, and exit from a place of spirit fullness. And she weaves spirituality, energy healing into all facets of her work to help people heal their mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So check out Xandra's. I'm not used to it spelling it with an X. Check out her website at soulessencewellnesscenter.com. So let me just bring her on before I really mess up her name. How are you?
Oh my gosh, so good. You'd be surprised. The Xandra with the X at the front, people are like, is it Sandra? Is it Xandra? And I'm like, it's just Xandra, short for Alexandra. It's more simple than it sounds.
Yeah, my daughter's name is Sandra. So, when I saw the X, I said, okay, so how do we pronounce this?
Did she spell her name with a Z?
No, an S.
Oh, gotcha. So got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I know you're a psychic medium, you're a psychotherapist. Let me ask you, how did you actually figure out this is what you wanted to do, for yourself?
Great question. Oh man. Well, I was one of those kids, they're one of my first memories. Actually, I think I was like 4 or 5 years old and I was laying in my bed. And at that time I had my parents were Lutheran and Christian and we were going to church. And I had this, I was laying in my bed and I was like, man, I love people so much. And I remember learning the story about Jesus dying for everyone. And I was laying there and I was like, wow. And I was like, would I die for anyone? And it was this super philosophical thought as a 4 or 5 year old about how much I cared about people and how much I loved people and how much I wanted people to be happy. So really early on, I was one of those empathetic kids. It's like, how do I help people? So obviously there's so many realms you can go into in terms of that area. And so I really started off doing a lot in more of the social work kind of area. I was really, really interested in helping work with different systems politically and things like that. But as I started working with people more in these systems, I was like, oh, I want to get even closer. It wasn't close enough for me being an empath. Of course, we got to get in there and feel everyone's feels. Yep. So then I ended up doing a lot around psychology. I have a couple master's degrees, one in holistic health studies, where I was studying the intersection between Eastern and Western medicine, and then went to school and became a psychotherapist. And so really started working with folks in that realm and was always very intuitive and empathic and psychic. And then I started really seeing all these really crazy overlaps. And I was like, I think I need to kind of come out of the closet with how much I'm seeing, because all my clients would be like, how do you know that? Or how do you see that? Or how is that happening? Or that kind of work. And as a small kid, I always was talking to spirits and beings and stuff like that. I was kind of afraid of it as a kid, but I really started becoming more into my sovereignty around those things as I got older as well. So lots of woo and lots of empathy really early on in life kind of led me to kind of weave the psychology and spirituality route.
Spirituality. Is anyone else in your family psychic or spiritual?
That's a good question. I think, you know, what's so funny is that all the women in my family, we have a very like Swedish German sort of background or whatever. And there was kind of this like kind of earth kind of connected, kind of this earth mama energy, lots of like plants and connection with earth and kind of that more kind of animal, kind of communing sort of energy. I don't think anyone in the family would consider themselves quote unquote psychic, but definitely kind of, it's so funny. There's like the reclaiming of this word witch nowadays to say like, I'm a witch, which I love. I'm just like, yes, empowered women. I love it. But I would definitely say a lot of the women in my family were very kind of witchy, salt of the earth, lots of farm, lots of kind of medicines, eating all your own food, like very, kind of like active earth kind of
Yeah, grounded.
intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, my grandma was a healer and my great grandma was a healer. So I had two healers. I knew my great grandma for a little bit, maybe about a year, and then she had passed. But my grandma used to do energy healing on my sister and I, and I knew I had the same ability because, like you, I was able to see spirit and hear spirit and speak to spirit. Tons of imaginary friends, tons of them. And my mother would always tell me, you know, this is your imagination. You need to stop this. But I knew it wasn't, because I had my grandma to show me. So yeah, it's amazing when, you know, we tap into our intuitive psychic abilities. And like you, I was very empathy with a lot of people. And I knew that was actually different than what other people were feeling. So yeah, and then you know, after a while, and then they used to call me a witch and all that good stuff. So
I love it. All
come
that
in
good
with
stuff.
this, you know, with the cross, or say, "Where's my garlic? Get out of my house." But yeah, it's nice when we finally get into who we are meant to be. So now you said you're getting back to you, that you're psychic. So what is like the meaning, I would assume, of being someone who is psychic, and you know, how can they actually help other people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's something, and I don't know if this is published sort of anywhere else, but it's been something that I've been working on, because so many folks are identifying as empathic. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I feel stuff, but does that mean I'm psychic? Right. Or there's kind of like those questions around what is psychic and what does it really mean? And I always think of kind of psychic or intuition is kind of on a spectrum, right? Kind of starting with, like in psychology, they have the HSP, or the highly sensitive person, right? The person that's just sensitive to energy in general, light or sound or noise. And then you have a step up from that, right? Which has someone who feels all that, but empathetic, right? They can feel other people's emotions. There's a lot of that. Is this mine? Is this someone else's? And then I always think of intuition are these kind of intuitive knowings. A lot of times, a lot of people have them in the body, right? That gut feeling, or, you know, they'll be sitting at a stoplight and their stomach drops and they're like, oh, I don't think I should, did I forget my keys, right? There's kind of that body base. And then I always think of psychicness as kind of, it encompasses all of those, but, you know, I think of the definition of, I think the definition of clairvoyance just means clear seeing. So I think of psychicness as really just seeing clearly, almost like I kind of think of us as, I don't know if this is weird. I think of
Not
us
weird.
as like a Wi-Fi station, you know, we're we're kind of able to tune into these different frequencies. And I think of having psychic abilities as really running your energy in a way that you're clearing out your router so you can really receive the signal without all the stuff from the body, right? All the patterns, or in psychology, certain stuck energy, even bigger energies, trauma, right? Certain neural pathways in the body. So I always think of psychicness as really kind of seeing really clearly, and also sort of, I kind of work on the chakra system. So really seeing clearly out of the upper chakras. In a way, I think you can have a lot of intuition from the lower, but there's a lot of pictures in the body, right? That sit there from this life, sometimes generationally, ancestrally, that get in the way of seeing sort of stuff. So that's how I think of psychic, is just clear seeing. And actually, it's a really simple definition, but really hard to maintain all the time throughout your day, I think.
So you do psychic readings for your clients?
I do. Yeah, I think for years I've been doing readings for folks. Even before this, I had two of my friends. So funny. I do psychic readings for people all over the world, but all my friends are like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And one of the things that I found is that I love doing readings for folks, but I really see psychic abilities as just available to everyone. I think we share that in the way that it's like, there are some folks that come in with that extra sensitivity and already aware to that, but that's always something you can awaken. You just have to move energy, this, through the body to really help it work for you in a way. And so I think, what was it? Probably 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, how do I help people get their own answers around this? Because I love helping people find them. Sometimes it's so sweet just to be in this like divine feminine energy of letting someone hold us and see us and provide us just information, that deeper knowing. But some people, I want people to feel empowered to kind of jump into their own answers. So I have what's called energy medicine courses to help people work that energy through so that they can start opening it up for themselves and kind of getting their own answers, so that it doesn't feel, I don't want to be the psychic, right? Where like every 2 weeks someone's like, do I break up with my boyfriend? Do I, whatever. I'm like, oh, we want you to trust you, right? We want you to have that answer and we can commune around it, but we want you to feel empowered. So that's how I kind of see it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy you explained it very nicely. And I feel exactly the same way, that, once you learn energy healing, you're able to tap into your own abilities, and then you're able to help yourself heal on many levels. And you also get those answers that you're looking for. So, and I know energy healing because I am an energy healer. It's becoming more and more mainstream. And I feel doctors, nurses, I feel everyone should learn this, because it is, yes, it is holistic. It is spiritual, but it's something that we're all born with.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen this too. Obviously, you've seen energy healing and how people talk about it, right? And the different sort of eras of it and how people are taking it in. But even, I don't know if I was walking through Target a couple months ago and I was looking for like a card for a holiday. And I walked through the school supply aisle and there was literally a chakra coloring book. And it was like, learn about your energy centers and color them. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is great. I was like, this is so sweet. Like these kind of, this sort of energy map, just it's one out of so many, but just, I'm like, it's becoming more available for people and they're teaching it to kiddos early on. And I was like, wow, this is so big. So I don't know if you've seen kind of trends like that in different.
Oh, I have.
Ways. Yeah. What have you noticed?
I've been waiting forever. I mean,
Oh.
I was born 1948. So, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I said, when is this going to become somewhat mainstream? And I've noticed now more younger children. I was actually in a crystal store yesterday, and I was very surprised to see like some 10-year-olds and 13 for teenagers getting into the crystals and asking about the energy centers and the chakras. And I said to myself, wow, I'm so happy I'm alive to see this become mainstream. More and more, there's a lot of people teaching energy healing. There's a lot of people teaching Reiki, is becoming extremely popular the past 10, 12 years. And we can tap into this. we have that ability. It's just a matter of having someone like you know, yourself. I also teach, help those that want to learn, teach them the right way, because it's nothing to be afraid of. It actually just opens their centers, the
Yeah.
chakras.
I wonder why, I don't have an answer for this. I'd be curious what you think is, I wonder why it's such a scary thing, right? Like, I wonder why, like, obviously there's certain traumas and sometimes, havingness and things, but I wonder why the idea of energy work can be so intimidating for folks. I'm curious. I know you've been doing this for a long time. If you notice there are certain kind of patterns with that
Oh
around the
yeah, they're
field.
afraid. They're
Yeah.
just afraid of the unknown. See, if they can't physically touch it, they don't know whether it's real or not. And they do not want to think that it's their imagination. And I do some exercises with them where they can actually feel what's in the middle of their hands. And now they know, okay, even though I may not be able to see it, but I can feel it. And then once you teach them, where to put their hands, once they call in the energy for themselves, then now they're not nearly as afraid. And now they're looking to get into it more because they're knowing that it's real. I think it's just all fear-based. And I think it's other people telling others that, oh, it's not real, it's voodoo, it's ridiculous, you need to go to your doctor, get medication, not that we're able to just to help ourselves heal.
Right. I'm thinking about when you're saying there's something that still feels really, because even as a psychotherapist, right, there's a lot of stigma around getting help in a way, but there's this sense, I think, with energy work, I wonder around like, what if I'm wrong and I'm crazy? There's something around the thing, what if I'm crazy? And I'm like, wow, that's such a big thing around crazy, but it feels kind of like the root of that is also in sort of the energy work piece, but also in kind of like this old stereotype about the unknown and even like the witch, like we were talking about, right? There's something about this like sort of unknown power or something that it's fearful of. I'm sure there's a big can of worms connected with that more too, but something, yeah, even about the statement of like, what if I sense something and I'm crazy or I'm wrong? What does that mean about me? This sort of other realm.
I can truly understand that and relate to that, because my mom used to tell me, it's your imagination. People are going to think you're crazy. Just stop it. And I knew it wasn't my imagination, because I was able to see them and talk to them and have conversations. And then it's that I never learned certain things, but it's like a knowing without knowing that you know.
Totally. Well said. Knowing, what was that? A knowing that you know that you know.
That
Yeah.
you know, yeah. And I would say to myself, but I know this. No one taught me this, but how do I know this? It's because our guides, angels, they do speak to us on so many different levels. And I tell everyone, just all we need to do is ask, and all you need to do is listen and become mindful of those voiceless voices that do speak to us. And we're not crazy, because we're just in our physical bodies right now. And I feel when we pass over, now we become energy beings, which is who we are. We're just energy beings in a physical body, so that we can do things here, and talk to one another.
Totally. Oh my gosh. And there's something you're saying too, it reminds me of like I think you said becoming aware of the voiceless sort of voices. I
Voices,
think
yeah.
something you said in terms of guides. And I love psychology and spirituality for this reason, because it's like in psychology, right, there's a whole method where they talk about parts work, right? Getting involved with the different parts of you that are speaking. And a lot of times if someone doesn't have an opening for like the wooier things, right, or saying like, oh, maybe a guide's talking to you, it just sounds like a part of them. And so it's just so cool, these ways that we're tapping into, like there's all these different methods that we're actually tapping into higher parts of ourselves, or guides that sound like us, right? When we're sort of in psychology, they'll be like, oh, well, what does this part say? Or what does this part say? Or what does this voice say? Or kind of your highest self and things. So I'm just kind of loving all these different fields that are like, without quite people knowing it or tapping them into bigger things in a way, it kind of shows this big evolving, like what you were saying around like, when is this going to catch on, right? When is it going to be intermixed and interwoven in? And it's happening in really cool ways, even if folks don't quite know sometimes what they're tapping into. I think it's really big.
Well, I feel more and more people are becoming spiritual. They're understanding that there is something besides this, here. And a lot of them also, it may frighten them at first, but they do have that ability to connect with their spiritual guides. And do you feel everyone has spiritual guides?
Oh, I do. And you know what's so funny is I have there's some folks that I work with and have in the past in terms of psychotherapy. And one person I even remember in the past, even if they don't have even if they don't say I have like a spiritual guide or things like that, for some folks, like ancestors are always guides, sort of in a way. And so I'm thinking about folks I've worked with in the past, like their spiritual guide is grandfather or grandmother that comes in, right? Or it'll be even in like AA, I've helped clients before that have come in, and there's a lot in AA about connecting with your higher power, sort of in a way, which a lot of times when people are talking about their higher power, I can see the guide standing next to them, which is connected in with their higher power, but they just say the word higher power too. So sometimes I'll do conventions where this is a little too much, but I'll do like 50 readings in a weekend, and people's guides are right next to them, right around them. It's just this sense of kind of programming a lot of ways that we grow up that we by ourselves, or that we're not attuned to those sorts of things. So I have yet to do a reading where I haven't seen someone with a guide. Sometimes I see people with certain entities around them, different land things, which I think are still technically guides. They're not on necessarily a great frequency for that person. Like in a way, they're still guiding you, whether you want to be guided in that direction, right? I don't know. So sometimes it's helping people get clear on like what's actually guiding you. Do you want that frequency to guide you, or do you want to actually tap into something that has more of a compassionate, tender, something bigger sort of there? So I don't know. I'm curious about your perspective. I haven't ever seen anyone without a guide personally.
Yeah, when I do energy healing on clients, I can hear, feel, see, smell. I mean, all the senses come in, and I can see an angel or someone that is trying to offer them guidance, or a loved one, comes in, and I hear the name. It's like when I hear them, it's like in a tunnel, and sometimes I understand the name, sometimes I don't. And in one of my sessions, the grandmother stepped in, but she had this real long Italian name. And for the life of me, I just couldn't understand it. It must be the Brooklyn. I don't know. I'm not sure. But then all of a sudden I started smelling chocolate chip cookies. And I'm saying, no one is, how can I be smelling chocolate chip cookies? Well, afterwards, when we spoke, I said to her, by some chance, who used to bake chocolate chip cookies? She started crying. It was her grandma, and she said the name, and it was a real long, as I said, Italian name. So the grandma then gave me a different, hint on who it was. And so, our guides, I feel, are always there with us. And I'm sure you get this, like if you just get that lousy feeling not to do something, I feel it's them telling us, just, be careful, watch what you're doing, but of course we have free will. So it's up to us whether or not we want to not be careful or be careful. But yeah, it's I feel everybody has them. I mean, do you feel that some of your clients are able to actually see or hear their guides? Or I think if they tap into it, they can.
Yeah, even I've got, so I have a couple different, I'm based in Colorado. So obviously as a psychotherapist, you can only work with folks in your state. So as a psychotherapist, sometimes I have folks that have a bigger, I don't think this is a word, but they have more of a havingness for that kind of stuff. So we can actually practice. Sometimes people are just trying to check in with their kind of soul essence energy. So some folks, it's more psychology based. And then I have my way wooier camp that I work with folks all over the world. And then those are the people that are like, I know I have a guide. I keep seeing this like, butterfly that's sort of around me when I close my eyes, like that kind of, some folks it comes in as sort of animals and things like that. But yeah, definitely a lot of the clients, I think even some of my psychotherapy folks, like there was someone in the past where they had havingness for that kind of work, but they were like, I don't know why I've been going through a really hard time and I just don't see them and I don't, feel them. And we were doing a psychotherapy sessions, and I kept hearing the word heart guardian. And this person was really good at, you gave them sort of directions, they would go home. And I was like, there's something about you tapping into a heart guardian, and then we talked sessions later and they were like, wow, my guide really comes in right here and really guards my heart, like in a really big way because of what I've gone through. And I want to work together sort of with them. And so sometimes, even if folks can't fully see, excuse me, sometimes it's like I get hits while they're talking, right? I'm just saying a name, right? Or hopefully being able to sound out the name or getting cookies, right? Or
Yes.
things like
Uh-huh.
that we can sort of help or kind of encourage. I think I was doing a mediumship reading one time and I kept seeing bright neon pink Post-it notes. And I was like, this is, it's one of those things where I trust myself pretty highly, but I was like, why?
Why?
And I looked at her and I was like, I don't know why I'm seeing bright pink neon Post-it notes. And of course, same thing. She started crying and she was
Yes.
like, she loved bright pink. She would leave Post-it notes everywhere. She would leave reminders about, how much she loved me or she cared. And I was like, well, she's leaving you a trail of pink Post-it notes and she's
Yeah.
given me information on them, so it's one of those things, right? When we're getting information, it's the wackiest stuff sometimes where it's just like, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm just going to say it. And, hopefully it makes sense in a way, but yeah, there's a trust point, right? Getting that information and just being like, all right, can't really make sense of this. Hope it makes sense to you.
Well, we just have to go with it.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
or it may be something that they should know maybe a week or so or a month later. And then all of a sudden now they say, wow, I remember her telling me this. And it wasn't then, but it was, in the future. So
Yeah.
do you see that also for them, some future or just past, or just being in the moment?
Definitely. Some folks will come to me for psychic reading stuff and they'll say, I really want to change out jobs, but I'm afraid about going into this. And so we'll look forward and we'll sort of look and say, okay, based off of this. And sometimes folks come back and sometimes they don't. So I don't always know, but there was a woman a few months ago. I did a reading for her and her friend, and she popped in and was like, oh my gosh, she's like the exact month she was looking at whether she wanted to move or change a job. And we were looking month to month. And I said something about whatever month it was in. And she was like, you were spot on. She's like, she literally stopped worrying about it. She stopped looking for jobs. And then in March, or April or whatever it was, she just said she looked for jobs. She found it and it was the perfect thing. And she moved. So yeah, sometimes we do look future wise. I don't know if this happens for you too, but sometimes I'll get information from a guide about someone's sort of future thing. And then I look and I check in that person's havingness, because sometimes the person wants to know the information, but they can't have the frequency of it. That happens. A lot of people
Yes.
come to me around relational sort of stuff. They want this like really solid thing that this person is the right person. I don't think there's a yes or a no to that. I think it's who we choose. And so sometimes I'll look in and I'll be like, I wonder if this person has this havingness for this sort of information. So I'm honest with people about what I see, but I'm like, this might be hard to take in, or this might not make sense yet. Kind of that, I don't even know what it's called, kind of that like that pause before saying it and saying, do you want to know this? Or because I want people to be able to have the information that I'm giving them. And right, if someone doesn't quite want that, or the ego is really strong about what needs to happen, there can be a little bit of that. I don't get too much push and pull on it, because I don't think anything's really set in stone. It's what people choose truly in some way. But yeah.
It's funny because this is going back 8 years ago. I was in someone's home. I also do home clearings, because some people have ghosts and whatever else.
Totally.
So I was in a house. I was clearing a house, and I was in the bedroom, and I got this overwhelming feeling that she was going to get pregnant and have a daughter. And so I looked at her and I said, I know you probably don't want to hear this, because she had one son already, and she was like, she was done. Yes. So she thought she was done.
Right.
Yeah, she thought. And I said to her, I am here. I says, there's a child that wants to be born. It's a daughter. I says, and Oh, and she says to me, oh, no, 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 I'm not having any more babies, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, of course it'd be your choice. I says, but there is a child that wants to come in. I says, and it's a girl. I could really, it was coming in really strong. So maybe about, I'd say 6 months later, I get a call, and she says to me, remember when you were here? I said, well, of course, I always remember when I went by your house. And she said to me, you'll never believe what happened. I said, well, what happened? I mean, I had no clue at this point. She said to me, I'm pregnant. I said, oh, really? She said, and I'm having a girl. Just me. How did you know that? How did you know? I mean, now she's questioning me. How do I know? It was just a knowing. It was a feeling and a knowing. And I said to her, well, are you happy? And she says to me, well, back then when you mentioned it to me, no, I wasn't. She says, but now I am. I said, well, it's the spiritual timing. It's the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, when they're ready, they'll hear it. And if it's supposed to happen, I feel then it'll happen.
Right. Right. And you're talking about that kind of when you can see and sense spirits around people and you're getting information, you're like, should we tell them? Do you think?
Do you ever withhold? I mean, sometimes I'll just say it because I feel if I hear it, I shouldn't be the one not to say it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how, like, I know there's different ways before people kind of get into their energetic space before they, do readings or healings and things. And I don't know I think some people maybe do this organically, but my process when I'm doing a reading for someone is I have that person say their name 3 times. And after they do it, I look at the frequency that they're running, and it appears to me as a color. And I change my frequency to kind of a half step away from that frequency so that I can read and understand the frequency that they're running, but I'm also kind of a half step away to keep my own space. And so some people run energies differently. And I've noticed by changing my frequency and kind of color to that, they have how I'm speaking even changes. So it's like, I find that I don't have to withhold as much information. If say someone was running like a red color and I go to a green, I notice they might not be able to hear what I'm saying because of the way that I'm saying it or the information. And so I notice when I use that strategy, when I'm pretty on a similar wavelength, it's almost like the Wi-Fi station kind of connects in a way, we're able to get that. So rarely I've noticed when I do it that way, do I have to withhold information because we're sort of speaking the same language on that frequency. Occasionally, like I hope this doesn't happen to you. Occasionally I'll have someone call my number and they're like, I don't have any money, but I just need you to answer this one question. And I'm like, this is not like Madame Zeroni where I just, have my crystal ball and I whip it out and I like, say things or whatever. But occasionally if someone's like, doesn't have enough money, I'm like, okay, let's like ground for a second, and someone really wants to hear something or see something. It doesn't really matter what I say because they're not really available. They just want to prove sort of something in a way. And so I typically don't do that anymore unless someone really is like kind and open and available for those things. But that's the only time where it doesn't really matter. It feels like they just want to reinforce, and that's not really spirit. That's kind of ego, right?
Yeah,
so it doesn't
it's
kind of
ego.
matter anyway. So
Yeah. Well, do you think of well, do you see ghosts? Do you see spirit?
Yeah.
Because I see them all the time.
I sort of roll my eyes a little bit. I have a good protocol in place. When I was little, oh man, I used to wake up and hear footsteps down the hallway. I'd look and see people just kind of crouched at the end of my bed. There'd be, people standing in corners. And my mom did the same thing, was very much like, she loved scary movies. We would watch them every day, which of course makes all these programming around those things. And so she'd always be like, maybe you should just stop watching scary movies, right? Or maybe you should, whatever. And when I was 15, I actually had a really crazy experience. I don't know if this has happened like in your process of seeing ghosts and things like that. In my experience, it was always just kind of seeing them and they would kind of communicate, but they would kind of remain good in terms of spaciousness. They would never try to touch me or things like that. And then when I was 15, I had a really crazy experience where I was actually sitting in my bed at like 2 a.m. and I was reading a book. and I put it down and the whole thing started vibrating. And I was like, books don't move on their, of course, like the programming, books shouldn't move on their own. And, when I was 15, there were already cell phones. So of course, when in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe my cell phone vibrated or something. And so I look over, this little like Nokia, the old style cell phone is just
Oh,
like
yeah.
sitting on my dresser. And I'm like, okay. And I picked the book back up and the whole book started vibrating, almost like a
Oh.
Harry Potter movie. All the pages started flying back and forth. And then I lost complete control. My whole body went limp and she actually entered into my space.
Oh.
It was really intense. She started talking to me and I was just, it's funny, years later, I was like, what was I yelling? I was like, because she kept trying to talk to me and I was just yelling at her, and what's interesting is like, I didn't yell, get out, go away, right? These like normal things. I found when I went back in my memory, I just kept yelling, I wasn't ready. I just kept saying, I'm not ready. I'm not ready, which is such a weird thing to say as a 15-year-old, right? I'm not ready. And so after that point, that's actually what catapulted me big into this work was like, I need to learn energy work so that this was obviously a being that really didn't respect my space. So
Yes.
that's really, really, and I ended up talking to her. She would slam doors in our house, turn TVs
Oh.
off. She was just kind of
Is it-
obnoxious. She was also funny. She wouldn't let me listen. I really liked Jimi Hendrix. She would not let me
Oh.
listen to anything besides the Beatles. She would change the radio station so we could only listen to the Beatles. It was ridiculous. You'd think she would be like kind of more mean if she liked the Beatles, or nicer if she liked the Beatles so much.
Well,
But
yeah.
yeah, so that was my experience. I could see and talk with them, but that was a really kind of intense experience that a lot of people, being in my 30s are like, how are you doing readings or how are you doing these things? You're so young. And I'm like, well, kind of got shook and awake really, really early and had to do a lot of stuff over the last 20 years,
Yeah,
basically.
they're not supposed to invade our space. That's for sure. She crossed the line.
Totally. Yeah. And that's how I learned how to cross people over and all of that kind of stuff. Cause I was like, there's no way that, you can stay in our house. Cause she was tied to the house because of the land. She had a son that died and she thought it was her fault. So
Okay.
she was always trying to communicate with me how sad she was and things like that. So, yeah, that was my experience. It was kind of, and I think that's what people are afraid of, right? They're afraid that if
Yes.
they talk and go into those things. In my experience, I haven't heard of really anyone else having that big of experience, but I'm pretty aware that, and I don't think everyone always agrees. I'd love your feedback on this, but I really think in this life and what I'm doing, I really wanted to be able to do it really early in life. And similar to you, right? There's going to be a point where I'm like, I've been doing this for 40 years, right? And things like that, because I wanted to wake up earlier. And so I used to be really angry at that situation and feel very vulnerable. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting way that I plan to wake up sort of early. And so now I'm in pretty big neutrality around it, but I've never heard of anyone else having that big and kind of jolting of an experience. And so I don't say it to scare people just because I don't think that's actually really realistic for most beings, or most
It's
ghosts,
not.
but yeah, but I might not put that in my contract next time if I want to wake up having an experience.
I know, don't come near me.
Yeah, totally. I was like, ooh, okay, maybe a little jolting for a 15-year-old.
Yeah. I had a client that like that an entity actually she listened to, and it went into her, and it took me a while to get it out, but we finally got it out. Yeah, that they should not be doing that. And I think maybe people are afraid that if they feel something that especially if it's a heavy or negative or doesn't feel that good, maybe they're afraid that it'll enter them. But the thing is not to allow that entity to control you in any way. I know, like for myself, I've had situations where they come pretty close, or they even touch me, and I say, don't, I am protected by God and my angels and spirit guides. You need to keep your distance. If you want to say something or to talk to me, I'll be more than happy to have this conversation, but don't touch or try to enter my aura, my space.
Yep.
But we have to set boundaries.
Yeah. It's interesting too. I'd be curious what you think about sort of this piece, but sometimes when people are scared of ghosts or entities or things like that, they always just remind me of people with bad boundaries, right?
Mhm.
It's just like that entity clearly wanted help, right? And had
Yes.
bad boundaries. So it's like a person in this life that like runs up to you and is like shaking you and is like, help me, right? That's essentially what she was doing, right?
Yeah,
It's not,
exactly.
she wasn't trying to overly hurt me, but she wanted my attention. She wanted help because she wanted to be crossed over. And at 15, I didn't know I knew how to do that yet. So it's
Okay.
like, so it took a while. I think sometimes people think of entities, I don't know, being so aggressive, but I just think of them as really misguided in the same way that someone's misguided or has bad boundaries or is just
Mhm.
really sad in this life too,
Yeah. Yeah, we have to set the boundaries, and we have to tell them, I can help you cross over. I can, assist you in any way, so that they know that we do hear them, and we are listening, and there is that communication.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do get some that, I mean, I do get it during some of the sessions that, a grandma will just all of a sudden be right next to me, but does not come any, they'll be right next to me, but
Mm-hmm.
they know not to invade, come into.
Right.
So, and then I immediately, start saying some prayers that, I am protected. So, because I feel that's important, that we, in my heart, and I tell this to all my clients, you have to truly know, trust, and truly believe that energetically you are protected.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if you have any doubt, that's when something can happen.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you're saying reminds me, right? In like psychology, if you believe something, your body doesn't sometimes know the difference between, right, a dream and real life in a way. And so if you
Mhm.
believe something, your body naturally orients towards that. It just assumes that position sort of in a way too. So it's
Exactly.
like, I wonder when you're saying that, right, just by having that intention, how your body starts running in energy that knows it's protected, it really creates that sort of frequency, that story, just by saying it too.
Oh yeah, and I have my clients, they step into, protective light, and I tell them, just imagine, just visualize somebody running towards you and bouncing off of that light, because they're bouncing. So guess what? No one's going to enter your energetic field. And they love that visual, because then when they step into that light, protective light, they actually can feel someone bouncing off of them. And I said,
Mhm.
yeah, well, that's how you have to go throughout your day. You want all the love and understanding and compassion to come in and out, but any of the heaviness or anything that doesn't serve you, not to interfere with you in any way.
Yeah, right. Like a window in a way,
Yeah.
like the light gets through, right? But you're
Mhm.
like, sweet, held up on the rain. Or
Mhm.
how we're today, I think we're getting I think here in Colorado, we're getting 3 days of snow. So perhaps I'll have to tell folks, kind of use
Oh,
the window and the snow metaphor. I love it. But maybe I'm going to use your word bouncing. I really, the way you said
I,
it,
yeah,
bouncing, it
bouncing.
was really great.
Just bounce. I tell that to my grandkids. I mean, I have 8 grandchildren altogether, but um, 2 are very intuitive, and I know they are healers, and they're starting to now get into their energetic being. And my daughter, now in her 40s, late 40s, is now the other day when we were in the crystal store, and I looked at her and I said, I think it's time for me to teach you energy healing. And she looked at me and she says, yeah, I think so too. So
Oh.
when it's supposed to be, it'll be. And I mean, a few years ago, she would say, "Oh, please, it's not real." It's real now to all of them. They know now. So
Oh.
so yeah, it takes time sometimes. I know for myself, I stepped into who I am now when in my 40s, and I'm in my 70s now. So it took a while, but I think with me, it was more being afraid to say, because of back then, rather
Oh,
than like, if I was your age now, oh, I'd say, yeah, we're good to go now, because it's
totally.
different now.
There's so much more permission
Oh
now to
yeah.
do that. And there's so much more. I mean, I feel like spiritual coaching is just gone. I'm just like, whoosh, in terms. So it's so beautiful, but I so appreciate folks like you going through and standing up early, even though it was really scary and there was a huge risk. back then, right?
It
Even
was.
saying those things or doing those things or helping people really even understand some of these terms that weren't even out there. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like, I think I was watching, oh, this was months ago. I was watching an NBA game and they were interviewing the coach and they were like, what do why do you think this player is so great? And he's just like, well, it's this magical aura around him. And I
Oh,
was like, did an NBA coach just say that?
magical.
Right. So it's like, even it's becoming this like mainstream way saying magical and aura, like
Mhm.
about one of the NBA. I was like, this is great. Right.
Oh,
But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's such gratitude for me for folks like you standing up when those things were not happening. And it's such a process and such rooted system that you've built and opened a door for so many people. So I just have so much gratitude for that because I'm sure it was frightening. And thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah,
saying yes.
thank you. Yeah, it was frightening and it was challenging and difficult. And I actually lost, friends and my parents actually didn't believe in it at all. So, and my dad would always say, "Where's the old Barbara? I want the old Barbara back." And I said, that old Barbara never really existed, but now this Barbara is a different Barbara. So yeah, so I went through. There was a lot of heartache, but then I realized it's their choice how they feel, and they have free will. If they didn't want me to do healing on them, that was fine. I understood not to take it personally, and it was that it's all about choice and free will.
Right.
And but it took quite a while to understand that when sometimes family members think you're crazy.
Oh, 100%,
Mhm.
100%. And maybe you're speaking to something where people still hold themselves back. A lot of the folks that are sensitive or empathic in their systems, right? Because they want to make sure that they're still loved and taken care of. So it's this, do I have permission to be who I am? And so I appreciate you holding the permission frequency of saying, like, I give myself permission to do this, even though
Yeah.
my family doesn't, because there are few families. I didn't grow up. My mom was kind of in permission energy. My dad, even to this day, doesn't tell. I think maybe he's finally telling people sort of what I do, sort of in a way, and people are
Yeah.
interested, but there's this kind of like, let's just not say this sort of thing. So there's still definitely probably underlying shame or that kind of, what's the word? My brain today, some kind of stereotyping or
Oh yeah.
something kind of on it in a way,
Mhm.
but yeah, my heart gets it. It really gets what you're
Oh
saying.
yeah, we have to stay true to, I would tell my father, I would look at him and say, Daddy, I am free to be me, and so I shall be.
Yeah.
And even though you're not approving, it's still me. I haven't changed. It's just a different frequency. It was a higher frequency, but it did take a while to get the courage to say.
Maybe that's a big takeaway for all your listeners, is giving them permission, knowing that you're not alone. If you're the empath or the intuitive or the one that, if you actually kind of pop into your higher frequency and you're allowed to, there's a lot of joy there. And eventually, hopefully people get it, right? There's permission.
I hope so. And I feel like with my two grandkids and my daughter, they understand. It took a little while, but again, I call it their spiritual timing. When it is supposed to be is when it'll happen.
Right. I agree.
So what type of programs do you get? Because I know you have to go soon. You have clients. And where can my listeners find you?
Oh, well, the website that I have where folks can come visit if they're curious is soulessencewellnesscenter.com.
Okay.
And for some folks who are in Colorado and I do psychotherapy, I call it wooey psychotherapy. I think the technical term is contemplative psychotherapy in Buddhist psychology. And then I do psychic readings and energy medicine programs, which are very psychology and kind of earth-centered based. I call them root energy medicine, where in order to get that psychic stuff, we really start with the root. So all of that is, again, soulessencewellnesscenter.com. I've got all the social media stuff, the Instagrams, which I think is Soul Essence Center, the Facebooks, stuff like that. I'm not super great on them. I'll be totally honest.
Well, we'll have all the links on everything. I am not in the highness, so don't feel bad.
Oh,
I'm still
man.
learning, but I'm getting there.
Totally. I'm like, what's a reel anyway?
Everyone keeps on telling me, do a reel. But how? How? So
Totally.
Yeah, I know. Soon. Maybe that'll be my next thing to do other than the podcast.
I
But
love
okay,
it.
so it's soulessencewellnesscenter.com.
You got it. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time out. I know you're so busy and I truly appreciate you. And, please check her out, soulessencewellnesscenter.com. So
Mhm.
thank you for being here today. And a big thank you to those that are listening. And I hope that you heard what you needed to hear. So please visit me at motivateyourlife.net and please subscribe to this YouTube channel, the Spiritual Warrior Coach Podcast. And I'm also on Spotify, on iTunes, Apple, iHeartRadio, and we are international now. So that made me very happy when I saw all the other countries tuning in. Again, thank you for listening and have a beautiful week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.